arrived, too, at the intersection of Webster and Ellis, one whom she didn't recognize. In any case, they were all middle-aged white men who worked for the city, whose bellies stretched past their gray flannel suit pants. They'd drive west from downtown every 2 weeks with their clipboards in their hands, their hats over their eyes, and they'd peer through half-drawn curtains and ask children to number their bathrooms, then list the family members who used them. They pretended to be nice enough, even nodding now as Vivian passed, before they made note of the trash spilling out of the neighbor's garbage can. There had been talk years ago that if Mr. Gaines's meat had soured, if Miss Edna's girls ventured out too early, if her numbers weren't washed off her cloudy kitchen window, the men might move them all somehow, shut them out of their new homes, tear their haven down to make room for the unimaginable. But that talk had just been talk, ensconced in the city's incompetence. Anyway, Vivian never worried about it outright, for God had promised her latter days would be plenty. She was approaching the evidence of that same promise now. She could see her girls from where she stood, grazing her front steps in distinct positions of rest. Something about their lulls always heated Vivian up inside.
"I thought I told y'all to set out that garbage before I got home,"
she called from half a block away, and the sound of her voice sent them shuffling, 2 across the stoop and 1 inside. They moved like they were synchronized, on stage somewhere, trying to convince an audience there was only one of them. Since she had them, it had been like that. Even when none of them made a sound, there was some guidance that lived inside their minds and joined them, and they'd wear the same color to school 3 mornings in a row, or style their hair in a French twist to the right, though they didn't share mirrors or rooms for that matter. They didn't need to do so. They finished each other's jokes. 4 years stood between the oldest, 24, and the youngest, 20, yet they all began menstruating the same day. It was why they were a perfect trio on stage, too, why men and women shot their heads back, let their mouths hang, why the applause roared in like a freight train, why people didn't want to let them go. Vivian had never seen a show of theirs where they hadn't been begged for an encore, or where they hadn't ultimately acquiesced. Vivian's neighbor Mary sat with them in her hardback rocker, her feet on the base of it shifting back and forth. She lived next door, but visited so regularly she kept her designated chair on Vivian's stoop. Mary's son stood behind her, handsome, chocolate with bushy hair, trimmed and neat. Vivian noticed he stood in touching distance to her oldest daughter, Ruth, too. But then again, Ruth had more old-world sense than a backwoods midwife. They were only friends. The boy's stability had saved Ruth after her father passed. He had been a gentle but strong child, and he had grown into that kind of man. "At least we picked up inside," Chloe, her youngest, bounced back from the kitchen. "Thank you, love. I can always count on you." Vivian kissed her baby's cheek. Chloe, being 20, would still allow it, but it wasn't only that. The 2 of them breathed a different patch of air than everyone else. Ruth was her helper in action, combing the other girls' hair, ensuring they got off to school or work on time. But Chloe was Vivian's partner in spirit. She knew to smile when Vivian's boss had worn her down. She knew to praise her when she felt like she was flailing in every angle of her life. The thing was, Vivian hadn't been supposed to have her. She had been in a car accident when Esther was still taking milk, and the doctor had said she wouldn't give birth again. Ellis had been driving, and Vivian swore he never got over that, the guilt. A year later, he died from a heart attack. Vivian had found out she was pregnant on the 1-month anniversary of his passing. She'd handled the child as a miracle ever since. "Go on in and finish setting up for dinner, though." She was talking to all the girls now. "You took the fish out of the freezer?"